Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mama's Legacy Podcast. I'm Max here, and today we're going to be breaking down the way too early NFL playoff predictions. And it's a good one. I spent a lot of time going over and why I went with these picks, breaking down the records, all sorts of things. And hopefully, you guys agree with me. If not, I'm always down to hear your responses in the comment section down below or on Twitter at Mamba's Legacy Host or at Legacy Mambas. Instagram at Mamba's Legacy or Legacy Mambas. And hopefully, again, you can throw your questions at me. I can get back to you, and hopefully, we can have a lot of collabs with you guys this NFL season. But with that out of the way, make sure you guys please like this video, subscribe, and let's start breaking these teams down. Now, I didn't do the playoffs yet. The playoffs will be a second video, but I put the playoff teams in. So let's get right into it. The Green Bay Packers I put here at 11-6. They're a very interesting team coming into the season with all the drama that's happened this offseason with if Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year. And ultimately, he will. He restructured his contract to play 1 year. And you guys are probably wondering why only 11 wins. Well, they don't have the easiest schedule. They don't really have a hard one either, though. They play the Saints week 1, and their quarterback situation is a bit messy right now. So I believe they come away with a win right there. I believe they lose week 2 to Chicago with that amazing defense that the Chicago Bears have. And I believe they split the next 2 games with the Vikings. I believe the Vikings win 1, and I believe the Packers win 1. I believe they win the next 2 against Detroit and Washington. I think they lose to the Rams because that Ram defense is no joke, and now they have Matthew Stafford. I believe they beat the Lions. They're just a mess. I think they're going to lose the next 2 to San Francisco and Arizona. I think they get a win back against the Bears. I think they beat the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are going to be a great team. They lose to the Chiefs. That Chiefs offense is really scary. I believe they beat the Baltimore Ravens. I believe they beat the Bengals. I believe they beat the Seahawks and Browns to close out the season. Now, the Green Bay Packers are a very interesting team to watch this season. Again, like I said, all the drama around Aaron Rodgers, and he should be hungry to win a championship. I believe the whole organization is, and I believe that the Packers will come to the season with a vengeance. They're playing the last dance with Aaron Rodgers, and I think they want to go out with a dub. I think they're going to be Super Bowl favorites for a lot of people. They're not my favorite, but, I see why people have the arguments for having Green Bay number 1, and I can get behind a lot of them. So, like I said, Green Bay Packers 11-6, and I believe they can make a lot of noise. I think Aaron Jones is an amazing running back. I think their defense is pretty solid, and hopefully my prediction is correct on this one. I think the Packers will end up going 11-6. The Minnesota Vikings, I think, are going to go 9-8, barely sneak it to the playoffs, just because of the start to the easy schedule. I believe they win the first 4. I think they lose to the Cardinals. Then they win the next 3. I think the Cowboys are a good matchup for the Vikings. I think the Cowboys defense couldn't keep up with Dalvin Cook and Thielen and Jefferson. I don't think the Cowboys defense will be able to compete with them. They're going to beat Detroit, obviously. Detroit's not a great team. I think they beat Chicago, the first matchup they have against them. But then I think this is where it gets a bit rocky. I think they lose to the Seahawks. I think they lose to the Baltimore Ravens. I think they win against the Steelers. I think they lose against the Browns. Lose against the Chargers. Lose against the Bears again. Win against the Detroit Lions, because if you lose to the Detroit Lions, you're not going to be in this video going over the playoff teams. They lose to the Packers, and then also lose to the Rams. I believe they lose all momentum after that hot start they have to the season, and it's not going to be fun to be a Vikings fan that second half of the season. I believe that they won't make it too far into the playoffs. The Vikings just aren't, I think, built for this. I think the Vikings are... they're on their way, I think. I don't think they're there yet. I think once Jefferson has a couple years under his belt, the offense is going to run a lot more smoothly. I think when you see the Vikings make a deep playoff run, it's going to look a lot different than the team they have right now. The Dallas Cowboys are really interesting. I think this whole season comes down to if Dak Prescott will play like Dak Prescott. I believe they go 10-7. I think the Cowboys are pretty scary offensively, obviously, but their defense is very questionable. The offense, if they can play like they did before Dak Prescott went down last year, is going to be no joke. Their defense is still probably going to be a joke. McCarthy's back. He's not great with the defense. I think the Cowboys are going to need to retool their defense in the coming years, but right now their offense is really scary with Dak Prescott if he can play, again, healthy and like he did last year. I believe he takes a lot of the pressure off Elliott if he's playing well, but the Cowboys I have going 10-7, first in the NFC East. I believe they lose to the Bucs, their hardest game yet. Win against the Patriots, win against the Raiders, lose against the Cardinals. I believe they lose against the Chargers. I believe they lose against the Vikings. I believe they win the next 4 against the Saints, Philadelphia twice, and the Broncos. I believe they beat us. I think they lose to Washington. I think they beat Carolina, beat Atlanta, beat New York once. I think they lose the second time. I think they also lose against the Chiefs, but I think they beat the Washington football team. Again, the Cowboys is all going to come down to the offense. I think their defense is going to be the downfall of them down the long run, but their offense is a scary thing to think about. CD, Dak, Elliott, they have a ton of weapons that they can use. Cooper, I think the Cowboys are going to be one of the most feared offenses in the league, but they're also going to have one of the worst defenses in the league. And I think all their wins are probably going to be shootouts, or at least most of them will be. The Bucs are going to be one hell of a team. They kept the entire roster from last year, the whole starting roster, and they're going to be nearly unbeatable. So I think they start off with 4 straight wins. I think they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Eagles, they beat the Colts, they beat the brakes off the Jets. Then I think they win also the next 3. I think they destroy the Falcons. They beat the Bears. They beat the Falcons again. And this is going to be an upset I have here. I think they beat I think they lose to the Carolina Panthers. I think they lose against the Rams as well, coming off that hard defeat, playing another tough defense then. I think they beat the Saints. I think they beat the Bills. I think they beat the Patriots. I think they actually lose to the Washington football team. I think they beat the Saints. I think they beat the Dolphins, the Giants, and the Panthers. This Bucs team is going to be scary, and with Brady behind the quarterback position, they may as well win the Super Bowl again. The Buccaneers are one scary team, and I don't know who can really stand toe-to-toe with them on paper, players-wise. I think they're going to lose the 3 games I have here, upsets. That's why I think they're going to lose, because of upsets. But this Bucs team is scary. I mean, what more do I have to say? Drew Brees surrounded by weapons. Not Drew Brees, Tom Brady surrounded by weapons, something he never had in New England. This is going to be scary. The Arizona Cardinals, I would love to give them a better record with all the upgrades they've made, but unfortunately I can't, and that's a bit disappointing. I believe the Cardinals are one hell of a team on paper, but I think the inexperience with Kyler Murray is going to be the downfall with them. I think they go 9-8. I think they finish 3rd, but I also think they make one of the wild card spots. I believe they beat the Titans. They lose to the Browns. Beat the Seahawks. Beat the Cowboys. Beat the Vikings. Beat the Texans. I think they lose the next 3 then. I think they lose to Chicago. I think that defense is going to get the best of Murray. I think they lose to Seattle at second game. Seattle's defense is still pretty solid. I think they lose against Jacksonville. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a career game then. I think they beat Green Bay, actually, which is crazy. I know that I put Green Bay up pretty high, but I think they beat Green Bay. I think they lose to the Rams. This Rams defense is scary. I think they lose both games to the Rams. I believe they beat the San Francisco 49ers, lose to the Detroit Lions in a huge upset, lose again to San Francisco coming off that upset, but then they win the final 2 against Carolina and Indianapolis. I think this Cardinals team could make noise in the wild card rounds, but I just wish I could give them a higher record. I really want to see this team do well, especially now they have JJ over there. I want to give them a higher record, but unfortunately I can't. But the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a sleeper team to watch. The San Francisco 49ers are also going to be one team to watch at 10-7. The record last year did not recognize how well they were. They were decimated by injuries, and I think they have a bounce-back year going 10-7 after a bit of a Super Bowl drop-off. I think they beat Detroit week 1. I think they lose the next 2 against the Colts and the Vikings. I believe they beat the Texans. They lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe they beat Chicago. I believe they beat the Seattle Seahawks. I believe they lose against the Rams. I believe they beat the Packers. I believe they lose to the Cardinals. I believe they beat the Bengals then. Then they lose to the Seahawks. Then they beat the Rams, beat the Falcons, beat the Cardinals, beat Jacksonville, but lose to the Tennessee Titans at the end of the year. This 49ers squad is going to bounce back after all the injuries. They have one hell of a defense still, even after losing Richard Sherman and all that. They have one offense that could go either way with Garoppolo or Trey. I think both those guys could potentially have the 10-7 record. I think the San Francisco 49ers are one team to really watch. I know they don't really have, one dominant really offense, but all in all, I believe the offense can take time off the clock and their defense will win them games. I think they can get up at least. I think they're one team that could score 14 to 21 points tonight and still be in the game just because of how solid their defense plays all around. And the 49ers, I believe, are another sleeper team to watch. They're also going to make the playoffs, but they finished second in the NFC West. The Rams defense is going to be scary to watch. I believe the Rams are going to go 13-4. Aaron Donald's going to have an MVP caliber season. I think he's going to finish top in the voting. I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think Aaron Donald is going to go off. I believe they win week 1 against Chicago. They lose week 2 against New York. Win against Green Bay. Win against Baltimore. Win against the Colts. Win against the Lions. Win against Jacksonville. Win against San Francisco. Win against the Bucks. Win against the Texans. Win against the Cardinals twice. Beat the Titans. Beat the Seahawks. And then lose the last 3, unfortunately. But this team is going to be one scary team going into the playoffs. They had everything last year except a quarterback. They went out. They got Matthew Stafford. This team is legit going to be one of the scariest teams to watch. Their defense is going to absolutely crush teams, beat them to a pulp. I think the Rams are going to beat down on everybody. I think their offense got 100 times better without Goff. And again, with having Matthew Stafford, a legit quarterback who can throw the ball, he can get you 300 yards a game easily. Matthew Stafford is going to do so well with this Rams team. I know that Matthew Stafford's extremely underrated because he spent all those years with the Lions. But now he's on a Super Bowl caliber team. I think he's going to do amazing things. I think this Rams team is going to be absolutely stunning. And they're going to, again, demolish any other team. And I think they're going to be the scariest defense in the league. Now, the Ravens, I have pretty low compared to where a lot of you guys would put them. I know they have Lamar at quarterback, but honestly, I don't see them going any higher than 9-8. At most, maybe 10 wins. But I think they lose against the Raiders week 1. I think the Raiders are going to start the season off a little bit hot with the win against the Ravens. I believe they beat the Chargers, then they beat the Browns. I think they lose to the Rams then. I think they will pull off an upset against the Chiefs. They'll beat the Bengals. They'll split the next 2 games with the Steelers. They'll beat Detroit. They'll beat the Vikings. They'll lose to the Browns. I think they will beat my Broncos. I think they lose the next 3 against the Dolphins, the Packers, and the Colts. I believe they beat Chicago. And then I believe they lose to the Bengals in the last game of the year. I do believe the Ravens are a solid team and up and coming. But right now, I don't believe this is their year. I think they still make the playoffs. They're going to be second in the AFC North. But I can't see them doing too much in the playoffs this year. I think they're too young of a team. Hopefully, though, next year, I'll be able to see them make some more additions. And I'll be more comfortable putting them higher. And hopefully they make a pretty strong playoff run. Now, the Browns, I have pulling off quite the upset. I believe the Browns are going to go 12-5 and win the division. I think they lose against the Chiefs week 1. I think they win the next 2 games against the Cardinals and Lions. I believe they lose to the Steelers, then win against the Texans, win against the Broncos, lose against the Baltimore Ravens, win against the Bengals, win against the Chargers. Not the Chargers, excuse me. Win against the Bears, win against the Steelers, win against the Baltimore Ravens, win against the Vikings, lose against the Bengals, win against the Raiders, win against the Chargers then beat the Patriots, and then finally lose to the Packers in the final week. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a complete upgrade from last year, and he was pretty solid already last year. I think their run attack's going to even be more powerful, but this year I think they're going to be added with better offensive passing attack. I think Odell Beckham's going to come back and have a pretty good year. They already have Landry, who's an amazing receiver. I think this Browns team is poised to make a pretty good run this year. Their defense is pretty scary. Everything about this Cleveland Browns team is pretty well put together, and the Browns are one of the younger teams in the league, but they have gotten tremendously better every year, and I can't wait to see where the Cleveland Browns end up at the end of the year. But my final prediction for the Cleveland Browns is 12-5. I believe they can do it. I believe they may even surprise me and win a couple more. I wouldn't be surprised if they won 13. I think I'd be pushing it if I said 14, but this Browns team is really scary. Now, the Dolphins, I think, are going to finish second, I believe, in the AFC East. I think they lose against the Patriots. They win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then they lose the next 4 against the Jets, Titans, Bills, and Falcons. I believe they win against Carolina, win against New England, win the next 6 games against the Raiders, the Bills, Giants, Colts, Texans, Jets, lose against the Bucks, win against the Ravens, lose against the Saints. I believe they had that huge win streak. I think Tua finally gets together. I think he starts off the season pretty slow, but finally gets a grip on things. I think Tua will break out about midway through this season. I think this all, again, depends on how Tua plays, but again, I believe midway through the season he's going to tear up. He's going to finally take his strides, and he's going to establish himself as a starting quarterback. The Dolphins' defense is already really solid. I think the Dolphins have a really solid shot at even potentially maybe winning the... I actually don't believe they're going to win the division. I think the Bills are too big an opponent, but I think they easily get second. I think they're going to make a strong playoff push. I think they may do pretty damn good things in the wild card rounds, and if the Miami Dolphins defense plays like he did last year, I have no doubts about them going 10-7. They could even, at most, I think they could maybe get 12 wins. I don't think they do any better than that. But honestly, Dolphins, up-and-coming team, get better every year. And now Tua, I think he's going to take his strides. Now, the Bills, I believe, go 13-4. The Bills are one hell of a team. They also get better every year. And I think they're going to establish themselves as a top 3-4 team in this league coming up. I think they beat the Steelers week 1, beat the Titans week 2, lose against the Saints week 3, beat the Falcons, beat the Dolphins, lose the second game against the Dolphins, win the next 4 games against the New England Patriots, the Jets, the football team, the Jaguars, lose against the Bucks, then win the next 5 against the Texans, Jets, Carolina Panthers, Chiefs, Colts, but I believe they also lose the final game against the Patriots in an upset, resting their starters. I think the Bills are going to have one of the deadliest passing attacks in the league. The connection between Allen and Diggs is crazy. If Cole Beasley comes back, he's another good target for Allen. I think the Bills' offensive attack is going to be too much for most teams to handle. Their defense is really underrated with White back there, but this Bills team is going to turn some heads this year. I know the Bills played really well last year. I think the Bills are definitely going to be one of the top teams coming into this year. I think they're going to leave a top 3-4 team, and I can't wait to see how well this Bills team does. I think they'll impress me. They could even win 14 games. There's a chance that they beat the Patriots that last game, and I would be perfectly okay with that. I think that makes a lot of sense for this Bills team. The Tennessee Titans, I believe, will be first in the AFC South. I don't think anybody else in that division really contends against them. I think the Colts are a pretty solid team, but I just don't think they're at the level the Titans are yet. I believe the Titans can win games just running the ball, chewing the clock. I think the Titans' rushing attack is going to be too much for a lot of teams to handle. We've seen it in the past. We saw them beat the Ravens in the playoffs because they had the ball in their hands for so long, and their offense can just stay on the field for 3/4 of a game. And that's how strong this Titans offense is. They can hold the ball and win games that way. I believe they go 11-6. I believe they lose the first 2, then win the next 5. I believe they lose the first 2 against the Cardinals and Bills, then beat the Texans, Dolphins, Seahawks, Chiefs, Patriots, lose against the Texans, lose against the Colts, win against the Colts, win against the Jags, win against the Jets, lose against the Rams, win against the Steelers, lose against the Jaguars, and then win the final 2 against the Saints and 49ers. This Tennessee Titans offense led with Derrick Henry is going to be too much for a lot of teams to handle, and I can't wait to see them touch the football field and hopefully get rolling. Now, the Chargers, I believe are going to go 10-7. Now, hear me out. Most of the games they lost last year were one-score fourth quarter games that they kind of choked. I mean, Herbert being a rookie quarterback, I really expected that. I didn't believe that they would win a ton of games, but now that he's entering his second year, he's got some experience in his belt. I think that Herbert's going to be able to lead this team to a playoff berth. Again, I believe they're going to finish second in the AFC West. I think they lose the first two against the Washington football team and the Baltimore Ravens. I believe they beat my Broncos twice. Then they beat the Cowboys, beat the Patriots, beat the Bengals, lose against the Raiders, lose against the Kansas City Chiefs, win against Philadelphia, lose against New York, win the next three against the Raiders, Vikings, and Chiefs, lose against the Browns, win against the Steelers, and then lose against the Texans. I think they go 10-7. They're one hell of a team. Again, they were one hell of a team last year. They just choked some of those leads against, like, for example, my Broncos. They had quite a big lead going to that fourth quarter, and it all just disappeared. But the Chargers now can, I believe, close out the games. I think the Chargers are going to be one of the top teams to watch offensively. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Their defense, I believe, could use a bit of work. I think their offense is going to really carry them this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers even make it out the wild card round. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're going to go 12-5, and I think they're going to have the best offense in the league. I think they win the first four. I believe they beat the Browns, beat the Washington football team, beat the Cowboys, beat the Bengals. I think they lose against the Baltimore Ravens, lose against the Titans, beat my Broncos twice, beat the Chargers, beat the Giants, beat the Raiders, beat the Philadelphia Eagles, beat the Green Bay Packers, lose against the Chargers, lose against the Bills, lose against the Raiders, and then beat the Steelers in the final week. I believe they're going to get a bunch of these losses due to some of their offensive line issues now that they've cut a bunch of the players. I believe they've cut their tackle, Schwartz, who I think is actually going to be quite a big loss and a mistake on the Chiefs' part. I think Mahomes is going to experience a lot more blitzes this year now that the offensive line isn't full strength. I hope that the Chiefs' offensive line can keep him healthy because Mahomes is one of my favorite players to watch in the league. But all in all, I think the Chiefs are poised to make the playoffs, obviously. I think they're going to have another championship run. The Kansas City Chiefs are, again, one of the scariest offenses in the league. Their defense can play amazing some nights, and also nights can play like, an average defense. But hopefully the Chiefs' defense can step up. I want to see the Chiefs do well. I think Mahomes can go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time eventually if he keeps up the way his career's going. This Chiefs offense is loaded with weapons for him, and I can't wait to see what the Chiefs can do coming into this season.